Michelle Despain arrived home to a scene so horrifying it would forever alter the course of her life and the lives of her children. The man she had vowed to love forever, the father of her children, lay lifeless on the kitchen floor. Marc Despain, a devoted husband, loving father, and successful real estate appraiser, had been brutally murdered in what appeared to be a cold-blooded execution. But as the investigation unfolded, it became clear that this was no random act of violence. Instead, it was the culmination of a diabolical family plot, one that would expose a web of lies, betrayal, and greed that no one could have anticipated. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for in-depth coverage of true crime, unsolved mysteries, and the dark side of history. Marc Despain was the kind of man who seemed to have it all. He was a pillar of his community in Jonesboro, Arkansas, a man who had built a comfortable life for his family in an exclusive neighborhood. His laugh was infectious, his presence commanding. He was the kind of man who made everyone around him feel at ease. His mother, Tana, often spoke of how proud she was of her son. "I can still hear his laugh," she would say, her voice trembling with grief. "I miss him calling me Mom." Marc was more than just a successful businessman. He was a family man through and through. He and Michelle, his childhood sweetheart, had been together for nearly 15 years. They were the proud parents of 2 young sons, and Michelle also had a teenage daughter from a previous relationship. To the outside world, they were the picture-perfect family. "I liked her as the children began to come along," Tana recalled. "I thought she was a good wife and a good mother." Marc had learned the ropes of the real estate business from his parents, who owned hundreds of rental properties. Together, they built a thriving family business. Marc eventually branched out on his own, launching his own realty company, which Michelle helped him run from their home. The couple seemed to be living the American dream. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. Michelle had a taste for the finer things in life, and as Marc's success grew, so did her appetite for luxury. She liked to buy things for the kids, and it was always extravagant, Tana said. Michelle also worked a second job at a local bank, but it seemed that no matter how much money they made, it was never enough. The more money that Marc made, the more she wanted, Tana recalled. But that dream life came crashing down in the most horrific way imaginable. On that fateful day, Michelle returned home from work to find Marc lying in a pool of blood on the kitchen floor. The scene was chaotic. Doors were open, items were scattered, and it appeared as though someone had ransacked the house. In a state of hysteria, Michelle called 911. "I don't know if there's still anybody in my house," she cried. "I believe her," the operator responded. "Okay, I'm going to get them out there." At first glance, it seemed like a burglary gone wrong. But as Detective Vic Brooks and his team began to piece together the evidence, a different picture emerged. The more I looked into it, the details, things that should have been taken in a normal burglary were not, Brooks explained. It appeared to be staged. Marc had been shot twice, once in the chest and once in the head, the latter at close range. "I refer to it as execution style," Brooks said, almost directly between his eyes. It was clear that this was no random act of violence. This was premeditated murder. As investigators began to dig deeper, they uncovered a web of deceit and betrayal that would shock even the most seasoned detectives. Michelle, the grieving widow, soon became a person of interest. The last time she had seen Marc alive was just a couple of hours before his murder, when he had taken her to lunch. After returning to work, Michelle claimed she had dashed home to retrieve some bills that needed to be paid. But what she walked into was a nightmare. "He was lying on the floor," Michelle recounted. I couldn't see his face because he's kind of looking this way, but there was blood all by the back, running all the way back behind the screen. As the investigation progressed, Michelle dropped a bombshell on detectives. She pointed the finger at Marc's father, Jack, suggesting that he might have had something to do with the murder. "I hate to think that his dad would do anything like that, because it is his son," Michelle said. "But he's just very cold-hearted." Detectives quickly eliminated Jack as a suspect, but their attention soon turned to Michelle. What they discovered was shocking. Michelle, it seemed, had been living a double life. At 33 years old, she had been carrying on a secret affair with a 24-year-old man whom she had been supporting financially. She paid his rent, bought him groceries, and even helped him move, all with money she had allegedly been swindling from the family real estate business. The couple was drowning in debt, with over $2 million owed. Just a week before his murder, Marc had confronted Michelle about their financial situation and expressed his desire to end their marriage. "It's always about the money with Michelle," Tana said. But the case took a dramatic turn when investigators received an anonymous tip. The caller identified a man named Terrence Parker, also known as Carlo, who had been boasting about pulling the trigger in Marc's murder. Parker initially denied any involvement, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Eyewitness reports and cell tower records placed him near Marc's home just before the murder, driving a dark-colored Mercedes. The owner of that Mercedes, Johnny Hubbard, confirmed to detectives that Parker was the man who had shot Marc. Detectives discovered that Michelle had been in constant communication with her father leading up to the murder. Surveillance video showed Michelle luring Marc away from his home office, giving Parker enough time to enter the house and carry out the murder. When confronted with the evidence, Michelle refused to answer any more questions without an attorney. Michelle's father, Carl Kelly, and the gunman, Terrence Parker, both pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and were sentenced to 35 years in prison. Michelle eventually pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of hindering apprehension and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. For Marc's family, the arrests brought a sense of closure. "The day that they arrested her was the best day of my life," Tana said. "But the scars left by Marc's murder will never fully heal." The American dream that Marc and Michelle had built together had turned into a nightmare, one that would haunt their family for generations to come. In the end, the story of Marc Despain is a tragic reminder of how greed and betrayal can destroy even the strongest of bonds. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss an update. Until next time.